All right, what's up, YouTube? Welcome in. Man, I'm excited for this show today. One, it's been a minute since I talked to you. And two, a very ho-hum day of college football news today. Absolutely nothing to talk about. No, you all know that I am very much kidding on that. This was the most eventful college football offseason day I can remember in a long time, with the fireworks and theatrics between one Nick Saban, head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and of course Jimbo Fisher, the head coach at Texas A&M. Man, wow, some fireworks today. And let me just say, from a purely entertainment standpoint, for Jimbo Fisher, 10 of 10, no notes. Professional wrestling was happening in college football. Now, I'm not a particular wrestling kind of guy, but I do like some of that mixed. I like the theatrical part of it. Like, I don't care about, choke slams or whatever. I don't want a Stone Cold's thing. I don't care about any of that, but I like the promos, cutting promos. I like that stuff. College football could use more of that. Sports could use more of that in general. Coaches need to be doing more of that. I enjoyed the hell out of all that today. But I'm going to tell you today that Jimbo took an L. Jimbo took an L, and that is one of the things that we are going to explore. Because look, I understand that's the SEC, right? But it was everywhere today. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a take, and I certainly do. And a part of this does have a little bit of Big 12 ties, because I think Texas A&M, the way Texas A&M acted today, and honestly just how they are in general right now, Texas A&M is like out Texasing Texas right now. They are better at being Texas than Texas is at being Texas. And we saw that in spades today with not only Jimbo, but with the AD, Ross Bjork, and how he handled everything. I also want to explore today, will we ever get something like this in the Big 12? Like I just said, college football needs more of this. Like college sports needs more of this. Will we ever get a feud like this in the Big 12? And is there potential for that in the new Big 12? I do have two names. I have two names to throw at you in the show today that I think could be guys that would go at it. And I don't think it'll be all that shocking to most of you, but I'm interested in that in the chat today. If you are in the chat right now, those of you that are here, send me your ideas. Like, who would be the prime candidates to get us a Big 12 public feud between coaches like we're seeing right now with Jimbo and Saban? I mean, hell, who knows? Maybe this is the world we're going to live in now, right? Everything in college athletics is changing. It's clear that I saw a tweet today that pointed this out, and I thought it was very true. It's clear that right now, with players starting to get a part of what their actual worth is, a part of what their market value is in the game of college football, coaches are just losing their minds. And so now you're seeing these public spats because coaches are just losing their minds. Everybody's so high strung right now. And oddly enough, the guy that we're getting losing his mind totally is the one that's benefited more than anybody. Jimbo just had the number one recruiting class possibly ever because of NIL. So that's a part of what makes this all so ridiculous and crazy. But hey, if that element of college football is going to be here and be here like this, I'm definitely here for it, 100% here for it. So we're going to talk about that. Jordan Addison has made a choice. It was not Texas. That means the number one wide receiver in the country is going to play for Lincoln Riley. And that is an L. One of these. See it? It's an L. Whichever way you turn it, it's an L for both Texas and Oklahoma. Rare that you get a Texas and Oklahoma double L, but that happened today. That happened today because of Jordan Addison deciding to spurn Texas and go to USC. Also, I mean, all these things that could have been, you guys should be glad that I didn't actually get a live show in last night, because it would have been so much more boring compared to this. It would have been more focused on like, oh, look, the Pac-12 is ditching divisions. But the Pac-12 is ditching divisions, and it's a smart, savvy move. And frankly, I wish the Big 12 would have been as quick on the trigger as the Pac-12 was. So we will discuss that as well later on in the show today. Kevin McCullough is a Kansas Jayhawk. Say that out loud. Kevin McCullough is a Kansas Jayhawk. Okay. And Texas fans have started a petition to try and get the kickoff time for that game against Alabama moved out of Big Noon, out of the Big Noon Saturday spot. They wanted in prime time to watch them lose by 35. More people. They want more people to watch them lose by 35. All things on the table to discuss today. As always, you can contribute to the conversation by not only hopping in the chat like Robbie already has. I see Robbie. Thank you for the donation, Robbie. Robbie says, go K-State. That's right. Go Cats. Thank you, Robbie, for being here as always and for contributing and supporting the channel. Fill up the chat, but I'm not going to see everything. So if you want to make sure I see your question or comment, you can donate by clicking the $ below the chat box where it says say something. That will pin it up at the top for me and will supersede everybody else. You'll get your question or comment in there. You can dictate where we're going in the chat. And at the same time, you're supporting what I do and bringing you Big 12 content each and every week here on the channel. So that's what we have. I would also appreciate it if all of you who are in here would go like the video right now. That it's totally free. Just one click. Doesn't cost you a cent. You can go like the video right now. It would definitely help me. Helps out with the YouTube algorithm. And in a roundabout way is going to help you get more and better Big 12 content. So free of charge. I would appreciate it if you do that. And that is whether or not you're watching this live or taped. Even if you're watching this taped, like after the fact, go ahead and click that like button, man. I would really appreciate it. Subscribe, turn the bell on so you get notifications when I go live or when I release some content. Man, is that all the housekeeping I have? I feel like that's all the housekeeping I have. All right, here we go. What a day in college football today. What a freaking day. And you know what? Before I dive totally into that, I know this drives some people nuts. I see a donation that I just got, and I do want to address this. I am back from Lubbock. Matt, thank you for the donation. Matt, how was Lubbock in the tech trip? Honest assessment of the facilities and growth of the city of Lubbock with 50K students. Yes, I had a really good time in Lubbock. Honestly, I didn't get to get out and explore a ton because it's just a really busy schedule doing the track broadcast. Those are like 5-hour broadcasts back to back, both of the days, and then you got to prep and get ready for it. So I didn't have a ton of time to explore other than Monday when I did. Now, I don't know if this is my guy that I met, two Tech fans, and I can only remember Matthew. I don't remember. God, it's killing me. I'm sorry. I don't remember both names. That is terrible of me. Incredibly nice gentleman that took me out to a barbecue lunch in Lubbock. Great Tech fans, like knowledgeable Big 12 fans. Really fun to talk to, man. We had an awesome time just sitting there chatting. Very much appreciate the hospitality. And look, I loved it. I stayed at the Overton Hotel, like right over by everything. I could just walk over to the track complex and walk over to the football stadium and hang out and see it. I've been to Lubbock 5 or 6 times before. Like, I'm impressed. I always try and make the case. Lubbock gets a bad rep because it's just out in the middle of nowhere in West Texas, but like it's not a bad place to be at all. There's a lot going on there. It's a massive student body, like you said. It's a very passionate student body and fan base. Like I'm about it, man. I had a really good time in Lubbock and enjoyed everything that I was around. So yeah. That's about it. The only thing that was bad, we chose to go to Chili's one night just because it was like within walking distance. Bad call. I've been a Chili's supporter for a long time, and I kind of regret that. That was not the greatest thing in the world. So I'm sorry to Chili's, but that was the only low light of the trip. Glenn, thank you for the donation. Glenn says any new info on Big 12 commissioner? No, man. I mean, I'll be honest. The only thing I could do is just speculate, like little rumors that I hear here and there, but nothing tangible. Like Chris Del Conte's name has been floated, but I have a hard time seeing that from a lot of different angles. How the hell could anybody in the Big 12 ever trust him? Look, why would he ever want the job? Like there are a million reasons why I don't understand why that would work out. But that was the last like whisper that I heard. I don't have anything really else for you there. I will just pass along again. The other name that I heard earlier on in the process was Shane Lyons, actually of West Virginia, supposedly because of some TV connections there. So that's all I got. But I do not claim to be the most connected guy in the world. Like I don't have like high level Big 12 sources, right? You guys know my background. Reported on K-State for 10 years. So that is where I could tell you a lot more about what's going on with K-State than I could the Big 12. Okay, here we go. Jimbo v. Nick Saban. So, look, I feel like everybody that's in this chat probably by this point has been at least somewhat aware of what happened with Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher in the last, what do we say here, 24 to 48 hours. It started with Nick Saban was speaking to a bunch of people in Birmingham. And not just a bunch of people, a bunch of very wealthy, very important people in Birmingham. And the last question that he got at this Q&A thing was about NIL, and he said that Texas A&M bought their recruiting class, which was not an accusation of Jimbo cheating. Frankly, is pretty accurate. Texas A&M had arguably the best class of all time since we've been doing recruiting rankings. And it just so happened to coincide with the first year that NIL was like really a thing and blowing up. Like, of course, Texas A&M did that. Now, do those comments come off a little bit tone deaf when it's Nick Saban who is saying that? Yes, I would agree with that, and I will level with Jimbo on that front. Like, if Bill Gates is out here complaining about the amount of money that Elon Musk has, then yeah, that's going to fall on deaf ears no matter how just he may be. Or if Bill Gates is upset about something Elon Musk is spending money on, like, okay, man, you're going to roll your eyes. Like, dude, you've got an embarrassment of riches yourself. Alabama may not have the deepest pockets of anybody in the country, like any program in the country. They're plenty deep. They've got plenty of influence, and they've got plenty of just prestige at this moment to build off of. So nobody is crying Nick Saban any rivers over the fact that that Texas A&M bought a better recruiting class than him. Well, 10:30 today, we get a press conference from good old Jimbo, and Jimbo was not happy. Jimbo was not thrilled at all about this, and completely undressed Saban. Like, basically insinuated that Saban had cheated, insinuated that Saban's character was poor. And this is, again, remember, Jimbo worked for Nick Saban for 7 years at LSU. Wow. Like, I don't know. That's crazy. I may be off on that. I know Jimbo was at LSU for 7 years. He was hired by Saban and worked with Saban at LSU. I don't know if it was the entire time, but he worked with Saban for years. And he's coming after this guy, basically saying, I know where the bodies are buried. Nick Saban ain't who you think he is. He referred to him as God multiple times. Like, I mean, it was as wild as it gets. It was totally wrestling. When I used the wrestling reference earlier, that was because that is exactly what it was, man. It was wrestling performative stuff from Jimbo Fisher, especially when it's coming out like it with his drawl and the way that he speaks. Like, he was cutting off people trying to ask questions because he just had more to add. He couldn't stop himself. Like, he could not help himself. Again, I don't know a ton about wrestling, but I know just enough. And I saw another tweet that was great where it was like Jimbo kept cutting off the guy and adding in something. And then someone threw in, I think it was Spencer Hall threw in like, and Mean Gene, let me tell you one more thing. And I mean, like, that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like from Jimbo today. So look, again, Saban is not the guy to be making this point, right? If Saban's point is the health of the game, and he's been big lately on talking like big picture, I'm worried about the long-term health of the game. That's all fine. I very much questioned the validity and how genuine that was before today, although now today I'm starting to actually wonder a little bit. Maybe he is fairly genuine about it. And Saban came back and apologized, in essence, on a radio show after the press conference today and said, that's really all it was. I'm just trying to make a point about how out of control things seem to be right now and worried about the health of the game. I shouldn't have singled out one person. That's basically the long and short of everything that happened here today. So again, understand, Saban can't be the guy to make this point. You can't be Bill Gates complaining about Elon Musk. It's very clear why Saban was doing this and saying this in the first place, which would be to try and get more money out of his donors. Like, he's speaking to the wealthiest and most important people of Birmingham, right? Of course, you're trying to milk more money out of them. You're saying, look, this is another school that's not as good as us. They outspent us. They have more talent now. You guys are going to have to open up your pockets. There was a message board rumor from a legend named Sliced Bread, who's still getting quoted in articles from The Athletic and name dropped by Jimbo Fisher months after the initial post. But that rumor was that Texas A&M had a pool of about $30 million from donors that was being used for their collective to make this happen. Okay. Here's why I would say Jimbo took an L, man. I think Jimbo takes an L because it just came across like so petty. I mean, the reaction from Jimbo was not equal to the action here. Reaction was not equal to action in any way, shape, or form. Went scorched earth on Saban's character. You know, I mean, it's like, look, set aside the fact that it's glaringly obvious that what Saban said is correct. Like, Texas A&M used their collective to buy maybe the greatest recruiting class that we have ever seen. It's legal. Nobody is saying that's illegal. Jimbo felt like his character was attacked and that he was being called a cheater. Saban didn't say that. And nobody is saying that now because it's like within the framework of the rules. But here's the problem. He basically insinuated Saban has been cheating for years. Jimbo, you worked with him for years. So if you're going to pull the holier than thou card and the like high and mighty moral authority card, why didn't you stand up while you were working with Saban and say, like, well, hey, We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be paying this kid. We shouldn't be cheating because I am Mr. Moral Authority. You can't do that and then come back around and try and come after Saban now and be like, look, this guy's such a terror. This is the guy that's been cheating. This is the man you want. You aided and abetted there for a while, Mr. Fisher. If let's let the record show, again, you worked for him. So I thought that was bad. Jimbo also in the course of this thing said that he had no idea how collectives work. He played dumb on all of that. It clearly lying, obviously lying. And the one thing Saban came across as in all of this is actually pretty genuine and honest. Maybe a mistake to mention Texas A&M and Jimbo, and maybe it again comes across tone deaf. Maybe it's a little whiny for Saban and a guy that's won as much as he has, but it was pretty genuine and honest, seemingly, some frustration with what's going on here. Meanwhile, Jimbo is just going off like a wrestling heel, like it's Hulk Hogan, trying to tell Mean Gene what's up here and completely shredding the guy's character. Makes for great headlines, makes for great storylines going into that game, which I believe is October 8th that they play. Love all that. I'm here for it. But if you want to ask who came across looking better today, it is undoubtedly Saban. Undoubtedly Saban. And it was made worse by the reaction of Ross Bjork, the Texas A&M athletic director, who complained openly that the SEC needed to do something, that Greg Sankey needed to punish Nick Saban, referenced a bylaw about more or less sportsmanship, not trashing other programs publicly. And the SEC did issue a reprimand to everybody, but they were not going to legitimately come after Saban there. And it just, the tone of Ross Bjork saying that this was the other thing. Ross Bjork said that Saban felt threatened and that he did this because Saban felt threatened, and that emperors, there was a quote there about emperors, when it's falling down, they become very threatened. Excuse me? Threatened? Now, I understand Texas A&M beat Alabama last year. What happened in the end? Alabama still went to the college football playoff. Texas A&M did not. Texas A&M has not won more than 9 games in a decade. 2012, people. 2012 was the last time that Texas A&M won more than 10 games. Since Johnny Manziel left that place, they have not won more than 10 games. Nick Saban is supposed to feel threatened by that? Excuse me? Now, I understand the recruiting class is great, and they did beat Bama last year, but in the end, Bama did Bama things, Texas A&M did Texas A&M things, which is losing 4 games a year. And this is why I come around to the fact, and I know you guys have been waiting for this, we're 17 minutes, almost 18 minutes into this thing without any real Texas attacks. Texas A&M is better at Texasing than Texas. Texas A&M pulls off the whole Texas shtick better than Texas does these days. I mean, one, they win more. Okay, so there's that part of it. Texas is like a 7-5 program. Texas A&M is like a 9-4, 9-3, 8-4 kind of program. Basically, what they've been over the last decade. So they're a step or two above Texas, while playing in the SEC. By the way, the SEC West at that. But they're better at being brash and overconfident and having an overinflated ego and projecting that. And now they're almost on this same level with Texas in terms of flaunting their money. So they've got that going for them now too. Flaunt our money, get this number 1 recruiting class, get everybody fired up about the recruits, and then we'll go fart out 4 losses. We'll go lose a dumb game to LSU when LSU's down, or we'll go lose a dumb game to Kentucky, whoever it's going to be. Texas A&M is going to lose 4 games. Do we have any doubt that that's coming? As much as it's very obvious that Texas is going to lose 5 or 6 games this year, we know that Texas A&M, just pencil them in, man. Pen them in. They're going to lose 4 games this year. We know how it goes with Texas A&M. This is lots of talk, lots of money, lots of resources, and then not delivering on the results to the level that they should and to the level that they think they are at, right? And those are the vibes that I was just catching big time from Texas A&M today. They love to puff their chest out and think that they really belong as one of the big boys in the SEC. And obviously recruiting that way, however it is that you're doing it, NIL money, whatever. If you do it like that and you get a number 1 recruiting class, you are putting yourself at least in the conversation. You have an opportunity to play with the big boys, but you have to actually go do it on the field. And Texas A&M has not done that. And the fan base AD, everybody on down acts like that now. They absolutely act like they have produced at the level that a number one recruiting class you would think would produce and pay off for. Those dividends have not actually come to fruition on the football field yet. And yet Texas A&M wants to talk like that. So it is pretty comical to me. And thinking about the dynamic then of Texas entering the SEC and Texas being there with A&M now, this same A&M that was so spiteful enough to leak the information about Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC, right? Like that the storyline potential, the back and forth potential between Texas and Texas A&M is incredible when you think about that. I also think about, is Texas a little too soft for this? Like, can Texas handle this in the SEC? If you're going to go around thinking you're going to throw your weight around like you did with Nebraska back in 1994 and 5 as the Big 12 is being formed in 1996 when it gets off the ground, you think you're going to go in and do that? Good luck with that, because not only are you dealing with the Nick Sabans, Brian Kellys of the world at Alabama and LSU, but like Texas A&M's ready to fight the hell out of you. I mean, Texas A&M's ready to go smear your character in front of everybody. They're ready to go pull all the skeletons out of the closet at a public press conference like that. So I don't know. Have fun with that, Texas. I don't know that Texas is really ready for. I don't know that they want the smoke. Right? That's what the kids would say. I don't know that Texas is ready for that smoke. Look, we know that they're not on the field, but even, like the off the field, the politics part of this, there are a lot of things happening in the SEC. And if Texas thinks that they're going to go in and just be a major player here, good luck with that. Good luck with that. If we're talking on the field or off the field, very much good luck with that, Texas. That is what I would have to say about that. So some opening thoughts about what it is that happened today between Jimbo and Nick Saban. Very much here for it. I am very glad that it happened, even if I think Jimbo came across as kind of a loser. Ross Bjork came across as kind of a loser. And I think that they take the ultimate L today. It was wildly entertaining. Let me get to a couple donations here. I'm sorry, Robbie. I got way behind on this. Robbie, thank you for another donation. Robbie says, how do you feel about the news that the NCAA is nixing scholarship limits? Yeah, we talked a little bit about this either last show or 2 shows ago. I don't fear that as much as I do, and it hasn't happened yet, by the way. They've discussed getting rid of scholarship limits and getting rid of limits on coaches, like the amount of coaches that you could hire. The coaches is the much more concerning thing to me, because the transfer portal should take care of most of the scholarship limit issues. If a kid is not playing, like, you can hoard theoretically as many scholarship players as you want, but we know what's happening today. If kids aren't playing, they're gone. So I think the transfer portal will take care of that being too much of an advantage for most people. It will not turn back into the 50s, 60s, and 70s when Nebraska and Oklahoma would take all the second and third tier kids that would trickle down to a K-State or KU and just keep them on the roster so that they wouldn't go there. Those days are gone. I don't think that's coming back. But if you can have unlimited coaches, that's a way to really flex your resources. You can hire people to do every little task. It takes away some of the advantage that the real grinders as a head coach in the sport would have, because other places can just out-hire you, and they can have other guys there to take care of everything that they would need to. So I worry much more about that than I do the scholarship limit part of that. But the coaching part, I think, is really scary, especially with the gap that we're looking at between money and the haves and the have-nots. All of a sudden, if you can hire a coaching staff that's twice as big as your competition in the Pac-12, ACC, and Big 12, right? How are you ever really going to truly keep up with that? That's a very difficult thing to do. So appreciate the question. Appreciate the donation. I think it's a good one. I'm much more worried about if there is no limit on how many coaches you can hire than I am no scholarship limits. Matthew, this is my guy. This is my guy, Matthew, that took me out to lunch in Lubbock. Matthew says, here's some money for the sketchy Uber. Yeah, Uber was interesting. I really appreciate the meetup. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Everyone should know John is the real deal. He's a great guy who truly cares about the Big 12. Hey, appreciate that, Matthew, man. Same to you, man. Matthew, truly a great dude that cares about the Big 12, and really good representative of Texas Tech. I just enjoyed getting inside the mind of Texas Tech fans and learning some of the history about, the state of Texas and how things became the way that they were and where the rivalries really lie with Texas Tech. Like, just a cool meetup, man. Really cool meetup. And I enjoy meeting other people throughout the conference to kind of dive deeper into like what the perspective is from that fan base. So that was awesome. I'd love to get the chance to do it with more people, more fans of the channel as the years go on. But it's a lesson in always shoot your shot. Like Matthew just sent me a DM. He just sent me a DM on Twitter when he found out here on the channel that I was going to Lubbock, and I was like, "Hey man, I got nothing to do on Monday. Let's do it. Let's link it up." And we did, and it was a very good time. So much appreciate the hospitality. Thanks for checking in, Matthew. If you are in the chat right now, I'd appreciate it if you go like the video. All it takes is one click, totally free. Doesn't cost you a cent. Helps support the channel. Very easy way that you can support the channel is just to simply like the video. I would really appreciate that. Even if you're not watching this live, that also helps. And I will also say this: if you'd like to donate and make sure that your question or comment gets up to the top of the chat, like Matthew and Robbie there just a second ago, and make sure that I see it, you can click the $ below the chat box where it says say something and attach a donation to your question or comment. Plus, you're just supporting the work that it is that I do here on this channel, giving you more Big 12 content. So appreciate everybody who does donate there. Man, I see some Blake Shapen talk going on in the chat, and I see Robbie saying K-State already knows Shapen. Yes, we do. Good Lord. I was there, man, watching that game in person. Very frustrating that K-State can never break through. Shapen handled himself very well. I'm excited to watch him this year for Baylor. I'm excited to watch him. Here is the topic that I really teased in the video, because this is the kind of thing back when I was doing a radio show every day. These are the kind of topics that I would love. Like, how can you take the main story of the day and relate it back to what your audience really cares about? Which back then, I was doing a radio show in Manhattan. It was about K-State. Here, it's Big 12 focused, Big 12 centric, right? So we have this great feud, this wrestling-esque feud between Saban and between Jimbo. And one of the first things that goes off in my head is like, hey, one, I'm jealous that I never got to cover anything like that when I was on the beat. But two, will we ever have something like this happen in the Big 12? Like, can we get something like this to happen in our league? Who would be the prime candidates? Like, if this were going to go down, who is brazen enough? Who is bold enough? Who is important enough to create a stir, to create headlines and make this happen? And I will tell you, there were two names that jumped to mind for me. And I have no idea how they would actually react. Like this, I was listening to a friend tell me the other day, he's like, yeah, don't know if I can bring my dog to that. There's going to be other dogs there. I really have no idea. I haven't had him around other dogs yet. I don't know how he would really react. I honestly have no idea. And so with this, it's like, hey, I have my reasons for why I feel like there could be some potential here, but I've never actually seen them like interact with each other or be in the same room, AKA conference together. So I don't really know this. And if that doesn't give it away, it's one of these coaches is coming from outside the league. Now I see Joshua says Gundy versus everybody. One of them is Mike Gundy. Yes, that would seem to be the obvious choice here. Mike Gundy has been, I think, unequivocally, out of the coaches that are in the league right now, he's the best quote in the league. He's had the viral moment with "I'm a man, I'm 40." He's stuck his foot in his mouth with everything that went down with Chuba Hubbard a couple of years ago. Like, clearly a man that is not afraid to voice his own opinion. He had some bad COVID takes. Like, just that Mike Gundy is not afraid to let it fly. He will put it out there and he will give his opinion, and he will be a little quirky. He's somebody like people enjoy the Mike Gundy press conference. You never totally know what you're going to get out of that. He's also a really relevant coach in the league. That's another part of this. Like, you have to be a relevant coach. You have to be somebody that is going to be not only a name, but have a team that will be competing to where like you're important. Because like the reason, I mean, Jimbo v. Saban would still be pretty funny and fun if it were, I'm trying to think, like Mark Stoops and Shane Beamer. If it were Mark Stoops and Shane Beamer, this would still be pretty entertaining, but it would not hold nearly the value that it does because Saban and Jimbo win or are at least in the headlines a lot, and Jimbo has won in the past, winning a national championship at Florida State. So you have to be a team that's going to win a decent amount. And what we know is Mike Gundy wins at a consistent level, as well as basically anybody that's going to be in this new look league. I mean, short of Oklahoma State has been the most consistent program in the Big 12. Baylor's had some higher highs, arguably, or at least more high highs recently, but Oklahoma State has been rock solid consistent. So I know Gundy's always going to be there. I know he's a relevant name, and I know people already enjoy the press conferences with him. all the potential is there on the Gundy side of this. Now, the other side of this is Gus Malzahn. And I saw a tweet today, actually, from Gus Malzahn that made me laugh and reinforced what my thought already was on this, where I was like, maybe Malzahn's a guy that could come into this league and really mix it up. Malzahn threw a tweet out there today. It was in the afternoon after all the fireworks had happened and said, just logging on to Twitter for the first time today. Did I miss anything? Now, is that kind of a dad joke? Yes. Is that kind of a played out joke? Yes. But for Gus Malzahn, who's probably in his 50s, I don't know exactly how old he is. I would expect dad jokes from him. I would expect that type of thing from Malzahn. And the fact that he was willing to just publicly put it out there when he's a guy that used to be at Auburn, so this rings hits pretty close to home for him with Saban and with it being the SEC and the SEC West. I enjoyed that. And I thought, hey, all right. So he's doesn't have a ton of fear about weighing in on some of that, about having some fun, about mixing it up a little bit. The main thing is I'm just attaching him to UCF because UCF, I've told you guys this over and over again. It's not at all a sign of disrespect for me saying this. I think they're coming in guns a-blazing. Fan base especially. The fan base just seems very ready for this, very hyped up, very brash and confident, and they're young. They have a very young alumni base. So all of that lends itself to being a very brazen fan base that is all in. I mean, they've also proven they're all in on trying to win. So I just think they're going to come in raring to go, ready to go, take no prisoner sort of attitude. And Malzahn's a big name that people do care about because of his time at Auburn. He has some cachet from that. He showed me on Twitter today he's not afraid to at least have a little bit of fun. And I think he's going to be leading a school that I think will be good and competitive, is definitely all in. He's definitely going to do whatever it takes financially to try and compete. If we're really trying to extrapolate this out to some kind of feud over money or who's buying players or whatever, I think the table would be set there for Malzahn to be a dude very much in the same boat here and could go at it. Can't we all see this? Can you guys see this? Mike Gundy and Gus Malzahn going at it over something? To me, that was the obvious choice there. The obvious choice for what would pop to mind. Because, a lot of these coaches, so I see who dropped in Fickle. It was Aranda v. Fickle. I'm sorry. I saw someone in the chat earlier say Aranda v. Fickle. If we're talking about what might be the best battle the first couple of years in the league, on the field, who might have the best programs, there's absolutely an argument there for Aranda v. Fickle. Totally could see that. And maybe it just develops over time. If it's a competitive enough rivalry for a few years and they both stick around, maybe that really can happen. They both seem now Fickle. I don't know Fickle nearly as well. Fickle always just seems to me to be fairly buttoned up. Now I could be totally wrong on that. And Cincinnati fans, admittedly, I am out over my skis talking about that. This is just me seeing very limited snippets of Fickle, but I've seen enough of Aranda. I mean, Aranda's the kind of the Zen master sort of guy, right? Almost a little bit of Phil Jackson vibes to Dave Aranda. Does not seem to be a guy that's going to get after it in a public wrestling style feud against another coach in the league, right? Aranda's just a guy who's going to be very quiet. He's not going to say anything. He's going to destroy. He'll just destroy you, take your soul, and then at the end of the Big 12 championship game, when you make this heroic stop at the goal line, just be stoic, no expression, expressionless. That's Aranda. We're talking about that guy. I can't get behind that guy being somebody that would actually really spark a feud with somebody. I watched him win in the most dramatic way possible in the Big 12 championship game to win a league title, and he was just cool. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that guy. And there are a lot of people, a lot of coaches in this league who seem pretty mild-mannered, and that was the other thing. I don't know that there are a lot of other great options or great choices. Chris Kleiman, obviously I know him pretty well, very mild-mannered. Can't really see that happening. Neil Brown, same deal. Lance Leipold at Kansas is not only maybe mild-mannered isn't the perfect way to describe him, but just boring. Just boring. Got the vibe from listening to him. He's just pretty dull. And again, do not take that as an insult. Bill Snyder was dull as hell most of the time in a press conference setting, and he was a legendary college football coach, right? That does not equate to skill, but in terms of potential for wrestling fights, I don't see it in Leipold at all. I mentioned Aranda, Matt Campbell. I mean, Matt Campbell's here in a season where he's woefully underperforming, sitting here talking about like, well, we're not competing for championships. We're competing for whatever it was, and the championship culture, all his stuff. That's not a guy to me that's gonna pop off on somebody. So yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, Lincoln definitely had some. Lincoln definitely had some potential for that if he were still in the league. Like Lincoln had the whiny thing in Waco. Clearly is a little bit sketchy, as we'll get to here in a moment with Jordan Addison. Lincoln would have had some potential there. I do like this. Browns and Beers says Gundy Holgerson. Interesting. Very interesting. Yes, I could see that. I think Dana Holgerson, I didn't even think of Dana. I should have. Dana Holgerson belongs in this discussion. Not only is he kind of an eccentric personality, not only is he somebody that already has familiarity with the league and knows some of these coaches, but he slams Red Bull all the time. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I slammed Red Bull like all throughout my 20s, made me way more unpredictable. Who knows? Like, if Dana just has like 5 sugar-free Red Bulls in a day, who the hell knows what he could say at a press conference after a game, like in the heat of the moment. So, yes, Dana Holgerson belongs in that discussion. That's a great suggestion. Tremendous suggestion. Keep those coming. Love the way that this is going. I am very interested in this kind of discussion. I love stuff like this, the hypotheticals, some of the stuff off the field. So bring me some more suggestions there. I think those 3, I think like Gundy, Malzahn, Holgerson, that would be the 3 to me that I would start to point to and look toward. M. Croson, sorry, I'm a little behind getting to this with the donation. Much appreciated, M. Croson. Says, John, I'm a Baylor fan in KC. Thanks for all the good content. Keep up the good work. I think Holgerson v. Gundy. Oh, man, M. Croson, I just stole your thunder. I totally did. That is my fault. I sincerely apologize for that. I looked in the chat. I tell you guys, donate. You'll supersede everything else. And I got on a talking roll, didn't look there. And then I looked down in the chat and saw somebody else say, M. Croson, you had it as well, and you had it first. Thank you for that. Holgerson v. Gundy is a great suggestion. So I'm sure you're sitting there like screaming at your computer. I deserve it. That was a great idea. Great idea, M. Croson. Shout out to the Bears. Shout out to Stoic Dave Aranda. Shout out to your Big 12 championship. And thank you for the donation. Thank you for tuning in. Spread the word. Let's get some more Baylor fans involved here. Daniel. So I said, Daniel, very generous donation. Thank you so much, Daniel. Way too kind. And I see Daniel says, I couldn't get the super hat donation working, so I sent a sticker instead. All right. Hey, I will take it, Daniel. I will take it. And if you have anything you want to add, you have any message you want to send in there, hit me up in the chat. I'll try and look for it as well. Man, we got another one. Daniel, my man Daniel, coming in strong with a "You are amazing." That wouldn't be a sticker, right? This is more like a gift. But man, I appreciate it, Daniel. Way too kind tonight. You can say whatever you want, Daniel. Type whatever it is that you want in there. I'll read it. That was great. Browns and Beers. Look at this. Everybody's shouting out M. Croson now. Yeah, Browns and Beers. I totally believe you there. Both of you guys had a really good thought. Tony, I see, says Paul Feinbaum is Saban, blue and gold dude is Jimbo. Listen, I'd watch that. For sure. Actually, I listened to a lot of the Feinbaum show today because, like, if there is ever a day to listen to the Paul Feinbaum show, today was the day. And I have not had a chance to get to most of the callers yet, which is going to be the real good part of this for, like, show prep purposes. I was listening to Chris Fowler and Pete Thamel and some of the guests that they had on. But that would have been a day, to be honest. If I'm Feinbaum's producers, I might just say, dude, I don't need you to say a word the whole time. Like, let's just bring in the callers. Paul, all you got to say is Jim from Tuscaloosa or Bob from Birmingham, and just let them go. Just give me 4 hours of that. That's what I need. So I'm very excited to get to the actual callers, man. That was the potential for a great Feinbaum day today with everything that was going on. Jordan Addison picks USC. Okay, so here's another topic that could have led just a typical like off-season show here, right? Jordan Addison picks USC over Texas. The takeaway that I have from this is it is not often especially for those of us around here that are not quite as fond of Oklahoma and Texas, particularly these days, that you get to watch Oklahoma and Texas take an L at the same time. Like two fan bases that have to be pretty burned up about this. Texas, maybe not quite as much. Honestly, I feel like this would bother Oklahoma fans more that Lincoln Riley gets his guy and now is going to have he's going to have a better offense. I mean, Lincoln Riley is going to have a better offense than Oklahoma this year. Anybody want to challenge me on that? Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, he just got the Bolitnikoff Award winner from last year to go with that talent that we saw with Caleb Williams. Cupboard wasn't totally bare already at SC. Offensively, they still have some pretty good firepower in that receiver room even before they added Addison. And then Lincoln Riley's coaching prowess. I'm taking Lincoln Riley over Jeff Lebby all day, every day. Lincoln's going to have a better offense. And he got all this heat for being, sketchy and being the guy that was tampering. Well, he wound up with Addison anyway. And, the interesting part for Oklahoma fans has to be like the way that this comes off looking is that Texas was almost used like a pawn here because Addison's thinking about transferring. There's all these accusations from Pat Narduzzi and Pitt about tampering from USC and Lincoln. So what happens? Well, hey, wait, we don't know if we're going to get him. He's going to go take this other visit to this other major program. And he goes to Texas and he posts on his Instagram story about it and people are talking about it. And then in the end, he just winds up at USC anyway. So, yes, the skeptic in me, the cynicism in me would say Texas may well have been used as a pawn here. I don't know how Oklahoma ultimately feels about that. And for Texas, life goes on, man. You still have Quinn Ewers. You still have Xavier Worthy. You still have Bijan Robinson driving a Lambo. You're going to be okay talent-wise on offense. Like, if you're going to fail, it's not going to be because of a lack of talent on offense. The Wyoming transfer that they already got at receiver, they're going to be okay. But it is an L. Don't get it twisted. That is an L for both parties. I just feel like it has to drive Sooner fans nuts even more because they're still very attached to this whole Lincoln Riley storyline thing, right? So Lincoln got his guy, and he did it in a fairly sketchy way. Like, I will admit, it is fairly sketchy the way this all happened and the way it went down. And I believe Pat Narduzzi with some of these allegations here. Like, Lincoln, the way he's acted and conducted himself in the past. I mentioned like the whining thing at Baylor about the point, like kicking the field goal late in the game. Come on, man. Like, we've seen enough of that whiny BS from Lincoln before. I'm not immune to like who the guy is. I just still think he's an elite coach, and I think he's better than Brent Venables. And I think Oklahoma would be better off with him as their head coach. Doesn't mean that he's not somebody that can be a little sketchy. And I think the Jordan Addison thing fits into that. Now, if he's not going to get actually caught, and I heard Pete Thamel actually say this on Feinbaum today, that like the way people are acting is there is no NCAA enforcement until something happens. And why would you act any other way? The NCAA does not have, they got killed by the Supreme Court. Historically, they don't have that much in the way of teeth when it comes to getting after big name programs anyway. I would absolutely test them. So I think Lincoln's going to be okay, I guess is the point here. And it's kind of like the Saban accusations to Jimbo. Like, you can grumble and be upset about it and say this, but like, even if he was breaking a rule, like, nobody's really coming down on him right now. So he's just sort of operating within the system. The NCAA is pretty spineless right now. He's just kind of operating within that system. And that's a part of why Oklahoma fans are so incensed with all of this, is because they obviously can see that, and they've been burned by the man before. So I get it. But today is one of those days where I did have a little smile at that decision, thinking like, man, Texas and Oklahoma fans are both going to hate that. They're both going to hate that. The Jordan Addison is headed off to USC. And, in the world that we have today, I was reading Jordan Addison's note. And again, like, understand that I am very pro player and go do your thing, get your money, go play. And out. Look, I would 100 times out of 100 rather live in LA and be making a bunch of money playing for USC than I would be in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's fine. I have no issue with Pittsburgh, but like, I'd rather be in LA. I'd rather live the Matt Leinart life than I would the Kenny Pickett life. Nothing against Kenny Pickett. That's just me. So I get why he did that. But reading the note, it was kind of sad where he's like talking about hail to Pitt and like, oh, there's a part of me that'll be there for life. And like, I love all my coaches and stuff. And it is kind of like, oh God, this is the world we're living in now, right? Like, you can say all those things and win an ACC championship and think that they mean something. But at the end of the day, money does talk. Money does talk. Prestige does talk. All of that is the way that the world works. So Um, anyway, hope you're doing okay. Oklahoma fans, legitimate concern for you here. Hope you're doing okay. I hope you're doing okay with the reality that Lincoln Riley is going to have a better offense than you next year. I don't necessarily know about a better team, but I'm inclined to almost make that bet. But he's definitely going to have a better offense than you. And he's pulling in basically whoever he wants. Caleb Williams now throwing the ball to Jordan Addison. It's going to be fun for the rest of us to watch. Maybe not for OU fans, but I hope you're hanging in there. I hope you're doing okay. At least take solace in the fact that he won't be playing at Texas. He's not going to be in burnt orange. And that Texas may have been used as a pawn. For all the puffing their chest out that Texas does, they may have just been used as a pawn by a kid from Pitt. So shows you where the Texas program stands right now. Not like USC has been a program with a ton of momentum behind it over the last 5 to 10 years either, and they just got out-recruited. Texas with more resources than anybody just got out-recruited essentially by SC and Lincoln Riley. All right, more donations. JC, appreciate the donation. Hello from West Virginia, John. Been a while. What up, JC? I saw your West Virginia Mountaineers were beating up on K-State baseball earlier. I was watching that before I hopped on here. So congratulations to your Mountaineers. They're having a pretty nice season out there in West Virginia. Tough one for me to take today. 2 more games. We'll see if K-State can get back up on the horse. Juan, appreciate the donation. Thank you for being here as always. Juan, go Cougs. He is a big Houston fan, shouting out the Cougs. He says, do you think the Big 12 will go to pods? If so, what would you want them to look like? It's a tough question for me because I don't, I've told you guys all this on the channel before. Like, I don't geek out on that stuff as much as it seems like everybody else does. If you want to call them pods or you want to just call them like you'll have the 3 games that you're going to play every single year, the 3 teams that you're going to play every single year, I think that's what it will be. I don't think it'll be like, you think about with a 16-team league, like a 4-team pods, probably won't be quite like that, but I'd imagine you'll have 2 or 3 teams that you're playing every single year. And you guys would all have to do the speculating on that. And I know you have done some of that before. So I guess, call me lazy if you want, but I don't have it all like mapped out in my head. I think like if I'm thinking about like my squad, K-State, I'd like them to play Iowa State. I'd like them to play Kansas probably every year. And then I don't know if there's going to be a third in there. Spin the wheel, let it land on somebody. I think I'm probably okay with that. Maybe Oklahoma State. BYU would be fun because it's a new team coming in here. For Houston, I don't know. Do you guys want the whole Texas thing? Do you want it to be for scheduling purposes and rivalry purposes and all that? Like Baylor, TCU, is that the Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech? Is that the way that you want to go? Do you want to open West Virginia? Like throw West Virginia in there? That'd be fun, right? West Virginia every year with Daniel Holgorsen going back to his old stomping grounds. A lot of potential there. I don't have the specifics in like a specific list right now, but I do appreciate the question. I know a lot of you guys get pretty excited about that, and I'm here for all your ideas, and I will definitely riff off of those. But listen, as long as there are no divisions and I'm going to get 1v2 in the title game and maximize my chances as a league to get the most money out of a TV contract as possible and get the most shine and the biggest playoff chances, like all that stuff, that's what I want. That's all I want. So just do that, which clearly is the way to go right now. Julius, thank you for the donation, my friend. He says, thanks for the great content, John. Man, you're welcome. Happy to be here. Happy to deliver this content to you. Juan, I see Old Southwest Conference, all Texas would be cool. All right, good. I figured that's probably where you would think, but I'm glad to actually know that because I don't know. So this is why, like, when I was talking to Matthew in Lubbock, like I was asking some of those questions about like, who do you guys hate the most? Like, where is there the most bad blood? Trying to figure out some of the dynamics of all the Texas rivalries and schools that play there and how all that shapes out. So I'm always very interested in finding that out. And so speaking of divisions here, pods, etc., whatever you want to mention. And by the way, I'm probably going to go about 5 more minutes here. So if you have something that you want to get in, make sure that you do so now. You can click the $ below the chat box where it says say something to donate. Not only support what I'm doing here on the channel, but get your question or comment into the chat. So if you have something I haven't talked about yet or a question or comment, do it the next 5 minutes or so before I get on out of here. I'll give you that little warning. But we did get the NCAA D1 Council coming down and saying like, hey, you no longer have to have divisions to have a conference championship game. So that legislation, which we talked about for a long time, it's been rumored was coming for a long time, is actually here now after the recommendation from the Football Oversight Committee. Now we get the NCAA Division I Council saying, yeah, don't worry about it. Just go play your championship game however you want. And within minutes of this announcement, the Pac-12 had a press release out there saying, divisions are gone. We're going 1v2. They said 5 out of the last 11 years that would have created a different Pac-12 championship game. And that is, I mean, look, we give the Pac-12 a lot of crap here on this channel. They've had a lot of things that I think have been poorly managed. Pac-12 Network, chief among them over the last 5 to 10 years, like basically since the last round of realignment. They've fallen out of favor. I think the Big 12 is a more competitive, like better conference nationally in terms of what they're doing on the field right now. But that was a smart, savvy move by the Pac-12 that told me their leadership is sound, at least in this case. That was a competency trigger. I've heard that term used before, like somebody will do something to you that like feels like a competency trigger. You can see that and be like, that is a competent person. That's how I felt about this. That is exactly how I felt about seeing that for the Pac-12. Like Khalil Cobb, it's a good move because it's glaringly obvious to me. And I saw someone in the chat just a second ago say like, I don't love the idea of pods in the Big 12. Divisions are inarguably worse because you're losing out on a chance to get the 2 best teams to play, to get 8 million people watching Baylor, Oklahoma State. Instead, you could wind up with a different team, not as deserving, not giving yourself as good a playoff shot, not getting as many eyeballs on the game. Like you really have to go that route. And the Pac-12 clearly understands the position that they're in. You know, if you want to take it as an admission that the Pac-12 is slumming it with the Big 12 and the ACC right now, then sure. But I think like the Pac-12 had to have been that. If they were not self-aware enough to realize that, there would have been massive problems there. They don't have massive self-awareness problems apparently there because that's a very self-aware move. You needed to do that. They have been ready and waiting to go. And I'm honestly the frustration for a lot of people with the Big 12 for a long time has been not proactive enough, always reactive, not proactive. This to me says like, man, really like the Pac-12 could have that figured out. And we've been having meetings for a while with the Big 12 and they're trying to sort all this out. I guess in fairness to the Big 12, I will give them this. The extra layer is that Texas and Oklahoma are still around and you're going to have to figure this out for 14 teams and then drop it back down to 12. So I can stop myself there and say, look, there is more to figure out for the Big 12 than there is for the Pac-12 because of Texas and Oklahoma not 100% knowing when they're going to leave and the fact that they're still, as of right now, going to be in the conference for the next 2 years. That does complicate the process. But like, man, couldn't we have gotten this figured out? Like, shouldn't the Big 12? There's no, if you're trying to figure out the scheduling part of it, that's fine. But I think you could have been ready there with a release and something to go and just say like, yes, we will not be going back to divisions here. We'll figure everything else out. It's going to be complicated, but we cannot do the divisions thing. And the Pac-12 was a step ahead of them on that. So shout out to the Pac-12, man. Frankly, like one of the better moves I've seen out of them in a long time because they need that just as much as the Big 12 does, just as much as the ACC does. That's the route that everybody is going to have to go. And by the way, it's not, the Big Ten is in that boat too, where they're tired of the way their championship game is played out. And that was the league that we kept hearing about was behind some of this pushing to get the legislation out there was that the Big Ten was frustrated about what its conference championship game had been. And so that's one of the big boys now. That's one of the two that is running away from everybody. Calico Willie. What up, Calico Willie? I see Calico Willie says K-State versus KU, Iowa State, Oklahoma State every year. Big 8. Yeah, I think that's probably the most – I would imagine that's the way it would go. I would imagine that would be the most logical thing there for everybody, and travel is going to be a part of that when they're thinking about that. But I will say there is a piece of me that would love to swap out Oklahoma State for one of the new schools, but that's just the allure of it being new. And I would probably miss the years that you didn't play Oklahoma State. But I think it's a fair thought. It's a fair thought. I'm pretty tired. It's getting late here. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to bounce. If you are watching this not live, it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to donate and support the channel, please like the video. If you haven't yet, whether you're watching live or not, that always helps. Follow me on Twitter, JL Kurtz on Twitter. Hit me up there like Matthew did. You never know what might happen. I try to be pretty responsive to everybody in the DMs on Twitter if you do have something for me in the meantime. Oh, Robbie, one last donation here. Robbie, thank you. Appreciate it as always. Do you think the SEC is reconsidering taking UT and OU, and that's why there's no news about why they're leaving? It would be epic if so. That would be pretty epic. Unfortunately, I don't think that's the reality. Listen, I would love nothing more, but we saw this whole. This is very. There are lots of feelings involved. There are legalities involved. There's a ton of money involved. Almost just cursed there. There's a bleep ton of money involved. So they have to keep it very quiet, as evidenced by the fact that it was so quiet before we even knew that it was happening, that they were leaving in the first place. So I think they've proven that they can be real tight-lipped and quiet about this. So I think it's just a lot of maneuvering behind the scenes. The SEC, look, it's inarguably a great move for the SEC to bring in Texas and Oklahoma. The context of everything that's taking place in college football right now, just not that it needed to really be codified or solidified, but I think all that's pushing it that way anyway. We're drifting toward a super league. We're drifting toward breaking away from the NCAA. We're drifting toward apparently Hulk Hogan showing up and Steve Austin and it just being a whole wrestling thing. We're just moving toward like all that becoming more of a reality. So no, unfortunately, as much as I would love that, the people that will want to talk about like, hey, could Nebraska come back to the Big 12? Look, man, I would love it. And there are probably some things there that they would look at and say like, man, we actually we are not crazy about this situation in the Big 10, but there's too much money. It's just too much money involved for everybody. There's too much money for the SEC in bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. There's too much power in bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. So I do think that is the reality of the world that we are living in. Okay. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, everybody who donated. As always, tell your friends about the channel. Spread the word if you have friends that love Big 12 content. And I will talk to you guys. Oh, Sunday, it's probably going to be an early show Sunday. It's probably going to be like mid to late afternoon on Sunday. I'm going to a concert Sunday night in Lawrence, of all places. Speaking of Big 12 towns that I'll be in, I will be making the trip to Lawrence on Sunday to check out a little concert. So going to try and do a show earlier in the day for you. Be paying attention to that. Take care, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.